We're four friends who live across the globe
and share a love of Bon Appetit's YouTube channel.
So we came together to bring you our thoughts on what BA serves up.
And try our hands at recreating their dishes.
Welcome to Pod Appetit.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Hey, it's Justine.
Hi, it's LJ.
And it's me, Meg.
Hey, it's a Valentine's Day special.
What?
Surprise, welcome. It's the first holiday of 2020, and since it's Valentine's Day, we're getting romantic.
Ooh.
We have each picked a BA recipe that is quote-unquote sexy.
Yeah. Okay.
According to LJ, it needed to be okay to have sex after we eat or something.
Yeah, of course. It's Valentine's Day. Like, what else are you going to do?
We have not told each other what we've made. So in this episode, you will hear us revealing what we have made for each other and all of the details that went into preparing our dishes. But first, instead of talking about what we've been cooking lately, we wanted to share our thoughts on Valentine's Day. Since, you know, that's the holiday we decided was our next special.
Yeah, such a food holiday.
And so many warm memories and traditions, right? Right, guys?
Well, I mean, it's kind of true when you're like in a romantic coupling. The plan for Valentine's Day is dinner, is it not?
Yeah, normally for me anyway. I feel like Valentine's Day is such a strange holiday because it's not like, you have stuff that you can do if you're in a couple, but each time you're in a new couple, potentially your traditions might change slightly because you don't want to be like doing exactly the same kind of little traditions that you used to do with someone else because that's sort of weird. So, I mean, there's like a general, like, I guess we should go out and do something nice with each other, whether that's dinner, whether that's, you know, some other kind of date or whatever, but like it's not got the same like, well, we have to eat this every year or we have to go and do this particular activity. I guess the traditions are maybe get each other a card or a gift and go on a date, but you know, those are quite vague.
Yeah.
I suddenly want a hot seat ask everyone what their perfect dates are.
Oh,
I
okay.
actually was just thinking the same thing. Like, what's your perfect date, or what was like the best Valentine's date you ever had?
Well, purely coincidentally, the first date I ever went on with my husband was on February 12th. So Valentine's Day is very close to when we got together. So I do have some warm feelings around this time, not specifically Valentine's Day, but it was sort of the season for it, I guess. But we went to Applebee's.
Okay, romantic.
So
Sexy.
romantic.
Because you and your husband have been together a while. How old were you guys when you went to your Applebee's date?
Let's see here. This was 16 years ago, so 2021.
Oh, that's so cute. You guys were like, let's do something fancy. I know, Applebee's.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a good first date place. It's not too expensive. It's not too fancy, but it's not like Chipotle.
Right, and it all worked out, and he did pick up the check.
Ooh.
This isn't a Valentine's Day story, but it is a first date story because you just said he did pick up the check. Russ and my's like proper official date, first date. We went to this restaurant and had a nice dinner. We went to pay and we'd agreed to kind of split it. And then it got to me to pay my half and my card got declined.
Oh, no.
I was like, okay, I guess you'll kind of have to pay. And of course, Russ did pay and it was fine. But I was so mortified because I was like, oh my God, he's going to think you're a complete idiot. Like, you can't even keep your shit together. I don't even know why it was declined because there was money in there. But I guess there was something wrong with the card. But it was really embarrassing. And I thought, well, he's not going to want to date me again because I can't, you know, I don't even know how to use my bank card. But clearly it was all fine and it all worked out.
You still charmed him.
Apparently, with my wit and humour. He's not with me for my money.
Yeah, you knew right away he wasn't a gold digger. It's perfect.
That's true.
There
That's
you
true.
Go. I think like a romantic Valentine's Day would be like going to the theater.
Oh yeah, that's a good date actually. Russ and I do go to the
Mm-hmm.
theatre semi regularly because we're in London and obviously we got the West End, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't go as often as we probably should do, given that we've got such close access to it. And every time we go, we're always like, we should do this more often because it's just such a great evening. Because you usually have something to eat beforehand, and then you can go to the theatre. You can order some drinks. You can. My favourite thing in the world is to order drinks for the interval, so that they're ready when you come out. And it's just like, you just feel so sophisticated, even though it's like not that different from going to see a movie. Like you're not necessarily like dressed up or anything, but it's just like, it just feels like you're being really cultured. I really enjoy it.
And like going to a movie, it gives you something to talk about afterwards, which I
Yes.
think is always good.
Exactly.
Yes.
So speaking of movies, my favorite Valentine's Day that my husband and I had together, as you three know, I'm obsessed with the Oscars. And I try to watch every Oscar nominated movie every year, which I'm currently in pursuit of. And actually my husband and I are driving to a movie theater an hour away tonight so I can
Oh,
see
wow.
Richard Jewell, because it's the only place it's played in Ohio. But
Boy.
one year for Valentine's Day, he surprised me. He was like, just make sure you have this whole day cleared. And I was like, okay. And he took me to 3 Oscar nominated movies in one day.
Wow.
Aw.
And it was wonderful. And he went and saw movies he probably wouldn't typically see with me, but it was a lot of fun. I loved being able to do that.
That's really nice. I like that. So
I do
thoughtful.
think that is a good thing about Valentine's Day. Even if it might seem obligatory to do something nice, it doesn't have to be that way. It can just be like sort of a friendly reminder to have a nicer than usual date night or a nicer
Yeah.
than usual dinner.
And one
Yeah.
of the movies was at the Dollar Theater. Like, we didn't spend a ton of money. It was
Yeah.
just more about spending the day together. And like you said, the talking to each other about it. Like, because
Yeah.
what were the 3 that we saw? We saw The Iron Lady, Hugo, and The Adventures of Tintin. And so they're all very different. And my husband usually does not watch British dramas as nearly as much as I do. So it was like very interesting to sort of like get his take on the Iron Lady. And then also like he was so fascinated by how much I loved Hugo. Like he was just like, oh my God, we had no idea. This is a movie about movies. It's totally your thing.
That's really cute.
I feel like I don't do Valentine's Day that much because my birthday is so close. Actually, when this episode comes out, my birthday will have passed.
Yeah.
Happy
that can be
birthday.
hard.
A day late when this airs, I think.
2 days. 2 days late. Yeah, so since they're like so close together and it's like right after Christmas, it's always like Christmas, my birthday, Valentine's. It tends to just get like smushed together.
Yeah, I have my best friend from college. Her birthday's on the 13th of February. So before we had like when we were at college, we were both single, so we just used to do stuff for her birthday at this time of year. Like Valentine's Day we didn't even think about it. Like it was just like Holly's birthday. So I think Valentine's Day is a funny thing. Like I don't like the idea with any holiday that you have to go and do a certain thing. Like the idea of like enforced fun is not one that's super appealing to me. But I think it is nice, as you say, just to have a reminder to say, just be extra nice to each other today. Like that's not to say that you shouldn't be like that every other day, but life gets in the way, you forget sometimes. So it's just nice to be like, let's go for dinner. It's an excuse, isn't it? It's an excuse to like just be like, let's be nice and do something fun together. So I'm not.
And you don't need to
anti
go
it.
out and buy an engagement ring either.
No, don't do that.
Absolutely not.
So yeah, it's all right.
It's all right. So here we are.
Here we
talking
are.
Here we
about
are.
it.
Any excuse to make some food, I guess.
Yeah.
So, a reminder, since it's been a couple months since our last holiday special, we went in blind. I mean, we each knew what recipes we were making. It wasn't like a weird like test kitchen talks.
Although one of these days I would be like, okay, I want LJ to make this dish, and she's gonna make it. Like,
Ooh,
Yeah,
I
maybe
do
we
think
can
something
do
like
that.
that could be fun for a special
That
at some
could
point.
be fun.
But
Yeah.
we're not quite there yet. Oh, okay. I'm not quite at that level yet. So the last one we did was the Christmas special, and we all made Christmas cookies. But what we normally do is we separate out our
dinner menu.
Yeah, throughout the courses, and we each have a course. So in this one, I have the cocktail or drink. LJ has the appetizer. Justine has the entree, and Meg has dessert.
And I want everyone to explain to me why it's sexy when they do it. It's very important to me.
I fail. Well, I can make something up.
Oh, I made sure I had something that could go with the prompt if need be.
More and more, I feel like this episode is for LJ.
Yeah. I want to know what I can eat and drink before I have sex. It's very important.
But, okay, to be fair, that's a thing you need to think about. Because how many times has anybody out there gone out to, like, dinner with your significant other, and you've, like, it's been delicious, and you just keep eating, and you just keep eating, and then you get home, and you're like, oh, damn it, I don't want to touch anyone right now. I'm so full of
Right? It's a
food.
real problem. You have to think about it. We've got to be strategic.
I mean, I get it. All right, so I'm going to start us off with the drink. I'm sending pictures to you right now.
I love this bit. This is the best bit. The like, ooh, that's
I
nice.
made Amaretto Cranberry Kiss.
Oh.
So,
Oh my goodness.
as you heard, Kiss is in the name of the recipe.
Yay.
That is sexy. You can hand that to someone and be like, I got you an amaretto cranberry kiss, and look them in the
Yes.
eye.
You can say, let me give you a kiss. And then you hand them
Yeah.
a drink.
And the next thing
Suave.
you know it, you haven't even eaten dinner because it's too
Yeah.
damn sexy.
You're just doing it on the counter.
Whoa.
Okay, yeah, let me tell, as I talk about this, I could barely taste the alcohol in this, and there was quite a bit of alcohol in this. The recipe, it doesn't have a ton of ingredients, and I should say, trying to choose a recipe, I had a completely different recipe picked out, because I was trying to find something that was also red. I just felt like a red drink would be appropriate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so
That's
I was
cool.
trying to look for a bunch of, like red or pink. I don't know. I was trying to find something. And I had found a rosé, and it was like very pink. And it was like this whole thing. And it had grapefruit juice in it. However, I started taking a new medication this week that literally has a giant warning on it that is like, do not take with grapefruit juice or grapefruit.
Mm.
And so, and I wasn't thinking, and then I was double checking the recipe I picked out, and then I was like,
That is so specific.
I was going to say, what are the chances? That's crazy.
I know. Well, because I'd done all the research on why I'm not allowed to take it with the medicine. It like does something to like the levels in your blood or something. So,
Oh.
I mean, apparently it's like, I looked it up. They've done studies. Like, you really shouldn't take grapefruit or take
It's
grapefruit,
probably
you know.
good that you pivoted then.
Yeah. So I pivoted. And so this is what I ended up landing on. And I loved the name of it, that it had Kiss in the title, because that seemed very Valentine's Day-y. And I
Yeah.
like that it was red. And also, I really love amaretto. Like,
Me too.
I think it's so delicious. When I first turned 21, every time I went to a bar, I'd be like, amaretto sour. Like, that was like my drink.
So remind me, is amaretto the almond flavored liqueur?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this recipe makes 8 drinks. I ended up halving it because my family that I'm currently living with, none of them really drink. They prefer other sorts of substances to relax. And when I was like, guys, I'm going to be making a drink. Do you want some? Everyone was like, no. And so I was like, well, I can't drink 8 cocktails. Like, that's not going to work. So I
Challenge accepted.
I'd certainly give it a good go.
If I had made these like later in the day when I wasn't going to have to like leave the house or something, sure, maybe. But, you know, I made them and still had to do things the rest of the day. So I decided that was not wise to drink 8 cocktails.
Aw.
So yeah, I did a half recipe. So I ended up using 1 cup of cranberry juice cocktail, half a cup of vodka, a fourth a cup of amaretto, and it's a pretty simple recipe. Like, you mix all of those things together, plus you're supposed to use 3 tablespoons fresh orange juice. And then you have, like, as a garnish, clementines. So I ended up, instead of using orange juice, because I had bought clementines or Cuties or, you know, whatever. Cuties is like the brand here for clementines and mandarin oranges. Is there a difference between clementines and mandarin oranges?
I've never known what the difference is. There probably is technically a difference in just like size or something, but I mean, they look kind of the same
if you
to
listen
me.
to LJ's episode, she's got whole different orange problems over there.
Yeah. I have no idea about oranges.
I mean, at the store, it literally, so it said Cuties, mandarin oranges, and then above it said clementines. So I figured if the grocery store said they're the same, I would just go with that.
Yeah, an orange is an orange, right?
It all
Right.
tastes like
Yeah.
orange.
So I ended up, instead of like buying fresh squeezed orange juice, since it was such a little amount of orange juice, I just squeezed a whole clementine in.
Ooh.
I was like, yes, I did something above and beyond, sort of.
Yeah, I think so. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mix everything, like you mix all of the liquid together, and then you chill it for a while. And then here was the next part. This is where it got shaky. Was in the cocktail shaker part.
So that's good, right?
If you look at the pictures that I shared with you, I realized here at my mother's house, I couldn't find an actual cocktail shaker. Now, I own like 3 of them, but they're not currently where I'm living. So I had to improvise, and I had to take the ice cubes and the drink and put it in that pink plastic cup.
Yeah. I see what you did there.
Yeah, and then I put the metal cup on top because it was a little bit smaller. And then I went over to the sink and I was shaking it. And I had not thought that through very well. And I got very sticky.
Oh no.
And so I learned actually the better way to do it was to have the metal cup on the bottom and the bigger cup on top. Like,
Yeah.
and then I could
Yeah.
shake it. And instead of like literally it was like cranberry and
face.
amaretto, like shower.
Oh no.
My arms were covered. So
Aw.
Sexy.
Yeah.
a lesson to anyone who's trying to do some sort of cocktail shaker without an actual one. Put the smaller cup on the bottom side and the bigger cup on top. Lessons that I learned.
Good
So
tips.
yeah, that was fun. And I was like, I'm really glad no one else is in here and that I didn't record myself doing this because there was lots of cussing that was happening. Yeah, then you strain it over into a martini glass, except we didn't have martini glasses. So I found the closest things I could find.
They look good.
They look so cute. I have
Yeah.
to say, it looks almost exactly like the picture, just in a different
It does.
on the recipe, just a different glass.
Yeah.
It looks so cute.
Oh, thank you. I was really pleased with it. I would totally make this again. It was really delicious. And like I said, you could barely taste the alcohol. Like, you could not tell that there was vodka in that at all. Like, you could taste the
Wow.
amaretto, but you could not taste the vodka.
I think this looks great. I actually really like the mismatched glasses. I think it adds visual appeal to the picture, to be honest. It's really cute looking. And
Yeah.
I would be tempted to try this because I've never had amaretto with any sort of citrus. I've usually had amaretto only with other almond flavors or coffee or chocolate or cherry. So this sounds like a really interesting drink to me.
I was really pleased with the flavor profile because I also don't know that I'd had amaretto with citrus before either, but I thought it seemed fun. And I think the combination of the orange and the cranberry juice with it, like it was just like some people might think it's too sweet. I had my mom taste it and she's like, it's fine. It's not the kind of drink I normally have.
I was going to ask you about the sweetness because sometimes I get worried with, I don't mind having a sweet drink like after a meal, but if it's something I'm drinking like as an aperitif, if it's too sweet, I feel like, oh God, well, all I'll be able to taste is like sugar on the food. So do you think it works better as like an after dinner drink or like a thing you'd have before you sit down?
That is a very good question. In that case, I would say maybe more of an after dinner drink because it does definitely have sweetness to it.
Yeah.
I think if you ramped up the amount of vodka, maybe it would be more of a pre-drink.
Okay.
Like, I don't mind sweet drinks, so this is very much in my wheelhouse. So I essentially drank 2 cocktails and then was like, I should eat something because I haven't eaten. So I like ate the rest of the clementine and then
I
some
really
bread.
like the idea of that garnish on the side. As I've never thought of using a clementine segment as a garnish. Normally it's like a lime or do you know what I mean, rather than a segment of lemon. A segment of clementine. But I think it looks really cute, and as you say, you can eat it.
Yeah.
Garnishes you can eat, always good.
It looks like in the tags for this recipe, it was developed as a Christmas drink.
Oh.
Which kind of makes sense when you think
the cranberry.
oranges
Yeah.
and cranberries. Yeah.
Cranberries.
Yeah.
Even amaretto is quite Christmassy, I guess, because like almonds, and I guess you use that in like baking and Christmas cake and stuff.
Yeah.
I like it. So I still think it like fits that like winter mood. Yeah.
Totally.
That was the thing, because I was specifically looking for cranberry also, because I felt like cranberry is a very wintry kind of flavor. And so, and then, like I said, it said kiss in the title, and I was like, perfect.
And it's red.
Wonderful.
I think it
Good
looks
job.
perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Next up, we have LJ with the appetizer. So, LJ, what did you make for us? I'm so excited.
Better be sexy.
I'm going to have to explain my rationale on this because I don't know if you guys will find it sexy, but I do. So I'm going to share the recipe first and then I'll share my pictures. So I made BA's, well, I think they've tagged it as their best, but it's not actually how the recipe comes up. It's their classic Caesar salad recipe. Now, let me explain. So I think for an appetizer, I was thinking you don't want something too heavy because we're trying to avoid feeling like heavy. We want to feel like fresh and zingy and ready to go like after we've had our meal. So I was like, a salad is probably the sort of thing that I'm looking for an appetizer. And salads for me, I love all kinds of different types of salad, but the one that I love probably the most, and actually weirdly I always order it if I stay in hotels for room service, is a Caesar salad. It's really like classic, and I don't know if some people find it boring. I don't, but it always reminds me of staying in hotels and getting room service, which to me is quite a sexy thing to do.
That's true.
And the reason I like it is because it's a salad, so it's not, you don't feel too like bloated or anything afterwards, but it also feels somewhat decadent because you've got the creamy dressing and the nice croutons as well. So it's not like you feel bad because you feel like hard done by because you've had a salad. It's still a nice sort of rich beginning to a meal, but it's not too much, if you see what I mean. So just all of those factors combined, like decadent but light, reminding me of being in a hotel. I was like, this is my Valentine's appetizer, and I don't care what people think.
Well, I'm glad you don't care, because may I just point out that the first 2 ingredients are anchovies and garlic.
Yeah, but so this is, I think that this is a myth about Valentine's food, because if you were the only one eating those things and then you were trying to like have a sexy time with someone else, then of course that would be a disaster. But if you're both eating it, actually it cancels each other out in my experience. So the key is you both have to be eating it.
That's a good point. Cancels out like, and you still have the rest of the meal and dessert to go. So all the anchovy and garlic may be gone by then.
Exactly. Yeah. So this recipe, it's the other thing I liked about it is because I've been really busy lately is that it's very straightforward to do. So the hardest bit about it is making the dressing, because what you have to do is make an emulsion, essentially, a bit like if you were making mayonnaise. It's egg yolks and oil, basically, with some chopped up anchovies and garlic and other flavorings and things like that. But the recipe itself asks you to chop up your anchovies and your garlic and some salt and kind of mash that into a paste with your knife. That was quite straightforward. And then it wants you to put it into a bowl where you would start whisking your egg yolks, adding some lemon juice and mustard, and then drop by drop adding some olive oil, but then mostly vegetable oil. And it asks you to whisk it by hand. And I said, fuck that, when I've got a food processor, because I know that I make mayonnaise in my food processor all the goddamn time. I'm not standing there getting a sore arm when I could just be saving my strength for all the sex I'm going to be having and use my food processor for the dressing. So that's what I did. I put the anchovy and garlic and salt kind of paste thing that you make into the food processor. I added my yolks and my lemon juice and my mustard. And then I kind of put the top on, zhuzh that a bit, and then opened the little funnel and started slowly, drop by drop, pouring in the different oils and just keeping it spinning that whole time. And that's a really easy way to make any kind of emulsion. It just takes all the work out of it. The key is just to go really, really slow. Even if you feel like, oh God, surely it can take more oil in quicker, just do it slowly, because if you do it too quickly, it will just break and it's not fun. So yeah, so just be patient and just drop by drop, and then you get a really nice, thick, glossy dressing. I then decanted it into a bowl and just stirred in some grated Parmesan and did some seasoning. It did need a touch more salt. I thought the anchovies would make it quite salty, but actually I felt like it needed more salt at the end, and then more I thought it needed more lemon juice as well, so I added an extra lemon squeezed in there. But yeah, that was it was pretty easy. It was all kind of done within about 15 minutes, and the good thing about that is you can make it ahead of time. So I made it the day before I was planning on eating it, so that was like one thing done. The next thing that you make is the croutons, and that is, again, really simple. You just sort of carve up some bread. I think the key for good croutons is getting good bread. So I went to a local bakery and got a really nice sourdough loaf. I actually cut the bread into cubes, but you could just tear it. And then it says you toss it in some olive oil and some salt and pepper and just bake that for about 50 minutes until it's nice and golden. And then what you need to do is assemble it. So I actually had this for lunch at home, and it says to assemble it, you should use romaine lettuce, and it says use the whole leaves because they, in the recipe, which is a recipe by Sue Lee and Chris Morocco, they specify using the whole leaves because it says that provides the ideal mix of crispness and surface area and structure. So I did that. I added the dressing and I added the croutons, and then it says use your hands to toss all of that together with the dressing. It specifically says skip the tongs, so I did as it said. Ended up with really messy hands, and I didn't really understand why it said skip the tongs, but fine. And then you pile it on your plate, and then it says to top it off with shaved parm rather than grating some Parmesan over it, which I really like, kind of shavings of Parmesan. I think they provide a bit of interest to a dish, so you're not just got like little kind of shavings all over. You just kind of, you know, you go through
your Parmesan is huge.
Yeah, I love it. I love those chunks of like Parmesan, like, because it just kind of like you'll be eating and then you'll suddenly be like, a head of parm, like great, like really good little salty bursts, it calls it in the recipe. So definitely got that. I made the whole recipe so that I had enough for like quite a few lunches. I did it the way it suggested it the first day with the whole leaves and the using my hands to toss everything together. And I think using the whole leaves, personally speaking, it's a bit unwieldy. I don't know if you guys have smaller romaine than I do in the UK. I don't think that's the case. But it just seemed that, I don't know, it just felt like a bit much, like I was having to kind of chop it up to kind of eat it anyway. So I kind of felt like surely an easier way to serve it is to just kind of shred it a little bit. Like, so for the second day, I kind of cut it into sort of, I guess, more manageable pieces. It wasn't like thinly shredded. It was just kind of torn. I tore it up basically with my hands a bit so that each leaf had been broken into kind of 3 or 4 pieces depending on how big the leaf was. And I found that a much more easier way to eat it. And I also used tongs the second time to toss it, and I did not see a noticeable difference. So I was like, why did I get my hands dirty for no reason? Unless they were like, be sexy, use your hands. But I don't think they were thinking about Valentine's Day when they wrote the recipe. But I would say, all in all, I think it's a really good recipe for a Caesar salad. I've had lots of different Caesar salads over the years. Obviously, you could add protein to it if you wanted to make it more substantial. On the I think the third time I had it, I did some bacon with it, which was really nice. Or you could have obviously shrimp or chicken or, you know, whatever you wanted, I guess, with it. But the dressing is really rich and thick and creamy and salty, and just like, it was really delicious, the dressing. And the crouton method is classic, you can't go wrong with that. And I love like big chunky croutons, so that was delicious. And yeah, I really like it as an appetizer. Thumbs up.
So when you not exactly shreddis, but like when you tore up the romaine, was it roughly the size of your giant Parmesan flakes? So then it was like you could have like a whole piece of lettuce and a whole piece of Parmesan. It's all the same.
Yeah, it was. I would say I didn't chop it, so it wasn't like a square of lettuce. It was more like a strip that was probably about the width of a Parmesan. So yeah, you could easily get that in a bite for sure.
It looks good, LJ.
I will say you convinced me with your justification of why it's sexy. It does seem very decadent, and I think it's a really good idea to have something light as the base, so a salad, and then putting on the nice creamy dressing. That's pretty sexy.
It was very sexy. I should have taken a sexy photo with it. That's what we should have done.
That'll increase our Instagram followers.
Yeah, I have to wonder if the whole romaine leaves is something similar to what happened with Christina and Claire's Thanksgiving salad, where they wanted the halves of the squash or whatever it was, mostly for the visual impact.
Yeah. I could see if I'd had, because you can see the photo that I've taken is just like my portion on a plate. If you were serving it, I guess at a dinner party, you'd do it on a big platter, where I can see those big leaves like looking more visually appealing and exciting on a big plate, as opposed to kind of more chopped up stuff. But I just feel like if you're serving it on a plate, it was just unwieldy. Like, I put 2 leaves on my plate and I was like, well, my whole plate is full, like I need more than that. So yeah, I guess it just depends how you're serving it, I suppose.
Do you know if this is the Caesar salad recipe that Molly's obsessed with?
I think I haven't checked that, but I did notice that someone's done a video. Was it Molly that's done a video?
Yeah, it's Molly in the video.
Classic seesaw, I think she calls it.
Seasal. Yeah. But if it is the one, I wouldn't be surprised, because it's really, really nice. One thing I noticed in the comments for the recipe is there were loads of people being like, oh no, raw eggs. And obviously they have a note that says, if you can't, if you're medically compromised, obviously don't eat a recipe with raw eggs. But it's quite funny that in the kind of blurb at the beginning, it says it's just very unapologetic about the fact that it uses raw eggs and anchovies, because they're like, are you squeamish about raw eggs? Sorry, tough, basically. That's the point of the recipe. The yolks give richness and the anchovies provide the kind of umami stuff. So sorry, not sorry, move on if you don't want it. And I kind of like that they were a bit kind of overt about that, because I think if you know, there's loads of other recipes for other stuff that you could make if you don't want to use raw egg yolk. So,
and kind of speaking to that, something that I think we all do on this show is try to stick to the recipe because we want to see how it was intended to be made. And then afterwards, we make adjustments if we plan to make it again. And it sounds like that's definitely what you did here. Like you said, you tried it with the full leaves first, and then you shredded them later after you'd had the intended experience. So yeah, I think that you and we are going about it the right way.
I always like to, yeah, as you say, I always think, you know, if they've written it, given because we see kind of behind the scenes in terms of the YouTube videos and get an insight into how they go about developing their recipes, you know, I trust them when I say, when they put a recipe forward and they publish a recipe, that they believe that's the best possible method. So I'm going to do that first because I think, you know, they wouldn't have put it out there in print if they didn't believe that that was the right way to do it. But also, I think they would say also themselves, just because they think that's the best way, you know, other opinions are available. Everyone's got slightly different taste and, you know, practical needs. So do what you want to make it yours. So
practical needs like not tossing your salad with your hands.
Why? I don't understand that.
LJ, I just scrolled down to see what the related video was that they had on here, and it is Molly making it.
Okay, well, there you go.
And,
good.
And so there is a video, and I happened to scroll down right when she goes, and this is where your hands get into it. And so what she did was, first of all, she grilled the romaine, apparently.
Oh, that would be quite cool. It doesn't say that in the recipe, but I wouldn't be against that.
Yeah, like looking at your picture, you have like one whole like leaf of the romaine. She took like a whole chunk of it and didn't like separate the leaves out. So that's why she was using her hands, because she was putting the dressing in between the different leaves.
That's interesting because that's not what the text of the recipe says to do. So maybe if I'd watched the video, I might have tried that. But it was still delicious either way, don't get me wrong.
I feel like what Meg said about it being the presentational thing of like, let's make it look really nice on a platter in the same way they did with the Thanksgiving salad. I think that's definitely what was going on there. I think what you did for like your alteration on your second like go with it, I feel like that's the more practical way for somebody, for a home cook, as opposed to a professional kitchen.
Totally. Yeah. So yeah, that was my appetizer. Still feeling sexy.
Nice job.
Next up, we have Justine with the sexy entree.
Now we come to the fail portion of the show.
Oh.
Okay, I feel like I was going to save this complaint. Oh, now my tummy's rumbling. Okay, I feel like I was going to save this complaint for when we recorded a recap, but maybe I'll do it now. It's really hard to find vegan recipes on the BA website.
It's true.
And you have to type in something in the search box. And I know there are like little drop downs that say vegan and vegetarian, but you have to type in something. You can't just do like, give me all vegan, you know?
Right.
That's one thing. But also, they're not labeling everything that's vegan as vegan. And I feel like I only discovered this like just the other day, like after I made what I made. Like the recent the Feel Good Food Plan stuff that is vegan is labeled as vegetarian. So what you really want to do on the BA site is search for vegetarian stuff.
Oh, that's so annoying.
Yeah, and I feel like I just discovered this, and how long have we been doing this? Like,
no, but you shouldn't have to. Like, that shouldn't be something. They should be doing it right? Like,
yeah.
That's annoying. Let's write in.
It's just one extra tag. Like, you can say vegan in addition to vegetarian.
Yes.
Yeah. So like, when you search vegan, that food that you just made, LJ, that you know is vegan, it doesn't come up.
That sucks.
As someone who once maintained the keywords for a search database, I apologize.
Not your fault.
To do that.
Let's write into Rappo and they can read us out on their foodcast when they do complaints.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There we go. What's their email? bonappetitfoodcast@gmail.com.
Do it.
Adam Rappaport at Condé Nast.
Okay, so it was a bit difficult finding an entree that would be sexy, and LJ told me I couldn't do pasta.
No, who can have sex after pasta? Like,
It's
if you're
all
out
I
there.
can eat.
I thought you were going to go, it's all I do.
It is all I do.
What a life.
The dream.
And also, I had like an added challenge of I wanted to try something completely new and different. I pulled a Meg this time around. I went above and beyond. This is not what you would think of as my usual.
Oh.
I did things that were new for me. I failed at some things, but that's okay, right? It's okay, and I
It's
wanted to share my
great.
failure.
Please
Yeah,
do.
sneak peek of my segment. The struggle bus will continue, so
Yes.
you're in good company.
The struggle bus becomes the cuddle bus. Because
Yeah.
it's sexy.
You're just representing being our Claire.
I'm uploading a picture.
Oh.
Oh, this looks beautiful.
This looks
I made
lovely.
Indian food for the first time.
Yeah.
And since it's Indian food, it's not just one thing, it's multiple things traditionally.
Yes. Yes,
So
it is.
I made 3 BA recipes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
I made roasted aloo gobi.
Yes, that looks delicious.
Yeah, love it.
I made a sweet and sour dal bhat. And then to cap it off, I made an avocado and mango salad with passion fruit vinaigrette.
Passion fruit.
passion
eh?
fruit.
Passion.
Ooh.
I see what you're doing.
Exactly. So if I was failing at anything, you know, it all kind of matched together, and they were all sexy. And like,
This doesn't look like a failure, though. Please explain to me what you mean by that, because
Yeah,
it all
this
looks
looks
delicious.
good.
Okay. So I did the aloo gobi. You know, it's Priya's recipe. I've been wanting to do it for a long while. The really only thing that I messed up on was that I had too many potatoes, because she just says use 2 medium russet potatoes. So I grabbed 2 potatoes, but they were big.
Oh.
So it ended up being like majorly potato-y, that it didn't, some of them actually didn't like roast all the way. Yeah, they couldn't get all the flavor on it. I feel like it ended up being good. It just didn't end up being aloo gobi.
Right.
Mm.
Okay.
I mean,
That's
based
okay.
on your picture, you can see a lot of cauliflower in there, but
Yeah, but it wasn't. Yeah, it was too many potato.
So I guess, all it is learnings, for next
Yes.
time you'll know, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it is a pretty kind of simple recipe, as we've all seen. You just like chop up the potatoes, you chop up the cauliflower, and then like you roast those. I got some new ingredients, some cumin seeds, some asafoetida.
Love cumin seeds.
Yeah. I have
And what I
sackful.
actually really like, I think all 3 dishes have like lime juice in them, so it's
Yeah.
like they all like go
Tied
together.
together.
Like when you're making like Indian dishes, I was using a bunch of the same stuff in like all of them. Yeah, the ginger was across the board too. So it was a very kind of ginger lime, sweet sour dinner was my
Lovely.
intention.
I love the colour you got on the aloo gobi. Like, you got some really nice sort of brown charred bits on your cauliflower and potato, even if some of them
Yeah.
maybe didn't cook through.
It's got that nice golden turmeric color.
Yeah. It wasn't bad. I just feel like it could have been better. Like you weren't really getting like the spice or like those kinds of flavors. It was maybe a little too bland for like an Indian dish, you know?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah, no, you're right. Like all I have to do is like cut back on the veg and then it'll be even better. But I'm also looking forward to Priya's been like hinting on her Instagram lately that she's going to redo this recipe and make it so it's completely just done in the sheet pan instead of going from sheet pan to stovetop.
Ooh, that sounds cool.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. So my sweet and sour dal was inedible.
Oh no.
No. But it looks fine. Why is it
It
inedible?
looks fine, but it ended up tasting like a lot of ginger. Like we had to throw it away. And also I burned my chunk, so that's why I don't have any on there.
Oh.
It's completely obliteratedly black burned.
Oh,
So
no.
yeah, I just dressed it a little. I was like, I'll just put the dried chilies on top. I don't have my chunk. It's burnt. Like it's hard to make that. Like as we saw in Andy makes Indian food, like you have to have it all portioned out and you have to do it very quickly.
Right.
Like, and since it was my first time doing it, I was a little bit slower and just like completely burnt up. Like,
oh no. Oh, that's a shame. Do you think you know how you do it differently so that it wouldn't happen next time, though?
I think possibly order is important, maybe a lower flame, and then just having everything already set out in little bowls and stuff that you can like just toss in.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, like it happened like really fast and I was like, well, that's burnt. Okay, not doing that anymore. Plus I had already been cooking for like the dal takes a long while to make.
Yeah.
So I was like already like done by the end. I was like, well, that's done. Yeah, because using in the dal recipe, the tor dal was fine to get and serrano chilies. The jaggery was a pain, and I don't know if I got the right one because it was
Can you
pretty.
explain what jaggery is? I don't know what that is.
Jaggery is palm sugar, but it's like pretty solidified as I got it, and then so I was like grating it, and it just started coming out like gooey, like how. You remember when I had that problem with the crystallized ginger in my cookies where things just started getting gooey? I had that same problem with the jaggery. So it was like, it just turned into like sticky glue. And I was just like, this is really hard.
I've never worked with jaggery before, so I don't know. I wouldn't even know whether that's right or how you're supposed to deal with that. So that's
and it does say to grate it, or maybe it comes pre-grated. Maybe that was the problem.
Does. Yeah, that was the thing too. I was like, maybe I just picked up the wrong one.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know if I put too much of that in or too much of ginger in. But like it was, At first I was like, this tastes sweet. And then as you keep eating it, you're like, I can't eat this.
So going back to what you first said, that it was too gingery. What do you think happened there? Because we know that you like ginger. You made the triple ginger cookies for Christmas. So did you just accidentally add too much, or what went on there?
I'm kind of not sure.
It does call for half a cup, which is quite a lot, right?
Yeah. I peeled it, I coarsely chopped it, and I think I had maybe a little bit less of everything else. I'm not sure.
Okay.
It was like, it's a dish that is a fine balancing act. Okay. And I think it says so, like in the comments, they're like, you can use less of this if you want it this. You can use more of the chilies if you want it more spicy. Like, make it however you want based on your preferences, like sour or spicy or sweet. And then, like, I just didn't do it right. I don't know. It turned out to be a little more, temperamental in how you do it than I was expecting.
Do you think you would want to try it again, or are you kind of like, I'm done with this recipe?
I think I would try a simpler dal next time because there are so many. There aren't, I don't think that many on BA. But I just got a new Indian cookbook that has other ones which are simpler. So I'm going to try again, not necessarily with this one, but I'm going to try to make another dal.
You can do it. I believe in you.
I do too.
And it's interesting looking at the comments. I don't think you're the only person that struggled with this recipe, so I guess that gives you a bit of comfort that maybe it's not just you. Maybe it's like just the recipe is strange. I don't know.
Yeah,
it doesn't look like this is one of the test kitchen. It says recipe by Taylor. That's it.
Yeah, that that Taylor restaurant in Nashville that they featured in their Hot 10, and Carla made that what did she make? That pork?
Yeah, that pork that looked really good. But I wonder if that's part of it, that this is more of a restaurant recipe that they just like tried to adjust for home cooking, and just like the speed that you said, that like with the chonk and stuff, because I mean, I feel like I'm, as as you've had to edit me putting recipes together, like it's not always that easy. Like we don't have a production team who's like putting little cups of everything directly in front of us that we can just toss in. Like we have to get each thing ready as we go along. And
Well, then, okay, so let's move on to the salad, which I'm sorry I made a salad. You made a salad, LJ.
No, I think it's fine. I think in this context, if you're making like an Indian kind of loads of little plates, I think it's fine. It makes sense.
The salad was an early pick early on because passion.
Yeah,
Yes.
I like that.
But actually, I didn't use the passion part of it.
Oh.
Because if you see in the recipe, it calls for 3 tablespoons frozen passion fruit juice concentrate. And
Is that a
yeah,
thing?
that's a very interesting thing to find, which I couldn't find at my Ralph's,
yeah,
which
that
is probably
feels-
the only store that would have it.
Very specific.
It is very specific, but I stayed in the same family. I think I did some sort of tropical orange,
Okay.
and it worked.
Okay.
Like, it was very weird that you get in this one thing and you're only using 3 tablespoons.
That was something I ran across in one of the recipes I looked at for the drinks. It called for 3 tablespoons of a specific thawed juice concentrate as well.
Yeah, what do you do with the rest?
Yeah.
Where do you even find it?
yeah, I don't know where you would find it.
It's in the freezer section.
Why would you thaw all of this for that much? Yeah, so good on you for
Yeah.
attempting this. I appreciate your efforts.
But it actually came out really good. Like, this was like the best thing. Like, it
Okay.
came out like literally like I cut some mangoes, I cut some avocados, and like, see, this has got the coriander seeds in there as well. It's got Dijon mustard, you know, like it fit in with the rest of the dishes.
Fun fact, I have a scar on my thumb from trying to cut a mango once, and I've never gone near one since.
It was hard.
It is hard.
Yeah, that pit is hard to get around.
I don't like them that much, so it's not a big loss. But yeah, whenever I see mango, I'm like, my nemesis.
Should have just cut it in half like Ninja did.
Yeah. Right through the pit, right?
So yeah, I think you can see in my picture it came out pretty well, and that was just like one portion, and I had like a bunch left that I actually like downed like the next day.
I love your polka dot dish that it's in. It's so cute.
Thanks.
It looks fresh and bright, and I imagine it would taste bright and refreshing. I think that's good. I like your whole spread here because I feel like they all really complement the other. You've
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
the citrusy salad, and then the spicy dal, and then the nice sort of heartier aloo gobi.
Yeah, that was the intention.
I really appreciate the effort that you've gone to go and make like a whole feast basically for entree. Like there's you've not just gone for one dish, you've done 3, which is amazing. Even if they maybe didn't all go according to plan, I still think you can call it an overall win because you tried something new and you've learned some stuff and you're not afraid to sort of put that knowledge to trying again. So I think that's what all this is all about, right?
Yeah.
And plus, I think it's very sexy.
Oh, yay! That's all I wanted. Was LJ think it was sexy?
What's sexier than cooking a whole feast for
Someone
your
you love, yeah.
romantic partner, right?
Yeah, I think and there is something quite sexy about sort of spicy food because it's like, ooh, zingy, yeah, this is interesting. You know, I think
Yeah.
it's good.
Yeah, that was my like thought process of the whole thing. I was like, I gotta find something vegan, like, and let's try Indian food for the first time. It's got that like sweet, spicy. Ooh, we're getting spicy for Valentine's.
Totally, I get that. I think that's sexy for sure.
That was my thesis going in.
I applaud you, Justine.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Hooray!
Well, to finish out our dishes, we have Meg with our Valentine's Day sexy dessert.
Sexy. So when we were brainstorming about this episode and LJ was insistent on making it sexy, we happened to talk about dessert because of any possible Valentine's Day food. I think we would probably think of dessert first with, say, chocolate. And someone mentioned chocolate dipped strawberries. And I think that this is kind of the quintessential Valentine's Day dessert because it's very romantic to have finger food to feed your loved one something with your hands, maybe. But I didn't want to do just straight up chocolate dipped strawberries because I thought it'd be too expected. Wanted to do something maybe not chocolate. So what I found was Bon Appetit's mochi covered strawberries.
Oh, mochi!
This is such a Meg thing.
Do you know why this is immediately sexy? Because it's part of your personality is in this decision because you're into Japan and that's the sexiest thing.
Aww. That's so sweet.
Oh my goodness! They look like little hearts.
Oh my god, it's so cute.
It's so cute! Oh, Meg!
Oh, you guys are too nice.
No, it's so adorable.
Oh, thank you guys.
You put it with like a heart thing in the background. I tried to stage by putting like a white background of paper towels behind my drinks, and I failed at it horribly. I was like, I'm gonna pull a Meg.
Man, it just looks like paper towels.
I wondered what those paper towels were for. I was like, is she trying to cover up some mess in the background?
I was trying to create a white backdrop. It did not work. In my head, I was like, oh, I'm pulling a Meg right now. I was not.
Oh, how funny.
I really feel like if you put Meg's most adorable heart strawberry picture next to my paper towel drink.
Oh, that's so funny.
One of these things is not like the other. Oh my god. Meg, you're wonderful.
What's the recipe?
Yeah, please tell us about these chocolate
Here
strawberries.
is the recipe itself.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Oh,
All right,
wow.
so in Japan, this might be called strawberry daifuku mochi, or maybe just daifuku. And so what daifuku is it's a very popular Japanese confection, and it consists of small round mochi stuffed with a sweet filling, typically anko, which is sweetened red bean paste made from adzuki beans. So I think this is the one part going against me in terms of sexiness. Beans are probably the antithesis of sexy.
No, is it vegan?
It is vegan. So
That's sexy.
yeah.
That is sexy.
I was excited to share this because it is vegan, no substitutions required. It's just straight up vegan. And it's pretty simple. It only has 5 ingredients. It has fresh strawberries, koshian, which is a type of the red bean paste, mochiko rice flour, which is a glutinous rice flour, and potato starch for just sort of working with the mochi dough so that it doesn't stick to everything.
Wow.
All right, so do you guys know what mochi is, or have you had mochi before?
I've had mochi before.
I don't think so.
I've had it before.
I love it.
We have it every year at Chinese New Year.
Okay, yeah. So mochi is a glutinous rice cake. It's sweet. And what I like most about mochi is its texture. It has a very springy, chewy, almost gummy texture, and I just find that really fun. And I would really encourage people to try a traditional dessert made with rice flour instead of wheat flour. For example, mochi donuts are amazing. I think you would love those, Justine, if you ever got a chance to try mochi donuts. So I thought I would give this a try for those reasons. I love mochi. I love strawberries. It's kind of sexy, I guess. So this is an older recipe. It's from 2015. It doesn't have any attribution as to whose recipe it is. Mm-hmm. So the steps are you mix the rice flour, sugar, and water to form a paste. And then you put that in a steamer basket and you steam it over boiling water for about 20 minutes until the mixture turns translucent and gummy. And unfortunately, I think from step 1, I started having some problems because I mixed the rice flour and the water and the sugar. And I thought to myself, that seems really dry. This seems too dry to form a dough. But I hadn't really worked with mochi before. I didn't know what to expect. I thought, well, this is a different type of flour. Maybe the dryness is to be expected. And I triple checked the measurements in the recipe and just went forward with it. Spoiler alert, I probably shouldn't have.
Okay.
And while the dough is steaming, that's the time when you put the red bean paste on your destemmed strawberries. And the recipe itself is pretty bare bones. It says, smear the red bean paste on the strawberries, and that's it. I felt like it was a very Great British Baking Show technical challenge moment.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, okay, I guess there's no technique to this. So I had the koshien straight out of the refrigerator, but I found that straight out of the fridge, it was a little too cold. It was kind of crumbly, so it was difficult to spread around the strawberry. So I had to let it warm up a little bit, but if it got too warm, it got really sticky and actually kind of liquidy. So I just had to find this perfect middle ground where it was workable, but not too sticky. So I ended up putting stuff back in the fridge and taking it back out, but eventually I got all the strawberries covered. So then by that point, the dough was ready from steaming, and I looked at it and it looked kind of translucent, but around all the edges of the bowl, I could tell that it had dried out a bit. It was a little bit cracked from the heat. And I thought to myself, well, I know that the next step is to stir all this together and it should form a smooth dough, but I feel like these cracked bits are going to just make the dough lumpy and bumpy. But then I convinced myself again, no, it'll be fine. It'll stir in. It'll just magically become smooth. So I stirred it all together. Again, spoiler alert, it didn't work. So I had this kind of lumpy dough, but I was like, I'll make it work. So I pushed forward. And the next step is to portion the dough into 8 pieces for your 8 strawberries. And here comes mistake number 3. So I'm thinking to myself, I suddenly had this flashback to about 10 years ago where I remembered, wait, I've made this recipe before. Not this exact recipe, but I had made mochi covered strawberries about 10 years ago with a friend. And I thought, oh, this is why this seems so vaguely familiar. And in that memory, I recalled that you needed more mochi than you anticipated for each strawberry. Like you needed a pretty big piece to cover the whole strawberry. And even as I remembered that, I still moved ahead with pre-portioning the mochi dough. So I had my little 1/8 piece of dough and tried to put it over the strawberry. And lo and behold, it was way too little mochi for this giant bean-covered strawberry. But I stretched it and I stretched it and I stretched it and, finally got it over. And in the recipe, it says just pinch the dough together and then roll it between your palms and it'll be nice and smooth. And of all of my completed mochi strawberries, none of them were smooth because they were lumpy and bumpy from the dough not being quite right. The dough pieces themselves that I had pre-portioned were a little bit too small, so they got stretched like a little bit thin. And I thought maybe I could salvage it. Maybe I could reform the dough into one piece. But by that point, it had been off the heat for so long that it was starting to cool and firm up. And there was just no way I was going to be able to reconstitute it into one single piece of dough. So all in all, I only got 4 out of 8 strawberries because the mochi just kept tearing. They didn't really turn out quite right. And I have one last photo to share with you guys that is for your eyes only. It will not make it to the Instagram. So you only get the beautiful cross-section photo because it does look cute and pretty when it's cut in half, but you don't get the lovely, delicate little mochi balls that the recipe shows. Or at least I didn't. But they tasted good.
That's all that matters.
Yeah. And I would say Japanese desserts in general compared to American desserts aren't as sweet. So this was another reason I liked this recipe. You don't want to get dragged down by a whole bunch of sugar. You don't want to feel super full. So it's a nice, lightly sweet, fresh strawberry recipe. I was a little disappointed with the end product, but it did taste good, and the cross section is super cute. So
I feel like this is this technique of stretching the. I mean, as you said, I've read the recipe, and it's super like vague in terms of instructions. I feel like there's a whole art to getting this mochi looking like beautiful, round, smooth balls of deliciousness that probably takes years to perfect. And so those instructions are not going to get anyone there. No. So I think given that you've done so well, I think your cross section looks delightful. You could probably serve it like, if you were serving it, you could probably serve them like that, like cut in half, and people would be swooning over them. So I think you can call it a win, Meg. I don't think you should feel bad about that at all.
Yeah.
Oh, thank
Meg,
you.
your recipe description is about the same length as mine, and mine was just mixing liquids together. And yours is so much more complicated, and it's roughly the same amount of words, like maybe one extra sentence. Like, you could be a great British baker.
I really felt like I was in the middle of a technical challenge.
I saw the schmear also. Not smear, but schmear.
Schmear.
Excellent use of an excellent word, in my opinion. I love using the word schmear if I can help it. Usually to do with bagels, but why not bean paste on a strawberry?
At first I was like, oh, I really want to make these now, but then like your story, I'm like, I don't know. Would you be willing to like, I don't know, help me or say like how you should do it? Like,
yeah, I think the 3 places that I went wrong, and where I think I could have salvaged it at any of these 3 places, but I just pushed ahead in day 3 Claire style, was the dough seemed too dry. And it was. I should have added more water in the beginning, as I thought I should have, but didn't. I probably should have maybe trimmed off any crusty edges of the dough, because they simply weren't going to become smooth in the dough. There was just no way they were going to incorporate fully. And then, yeah, maybe just portioning the mochi as you go instead of cutting it all up. And it doesn't say this in the recipe, but I was thinking maybe some sort of double boiler to maybe keep the dough sort of warm while you're working with covering the strawberries to keep it soft and pliable as you go, instead of removing it from the heat and then it just quickly cools down and firms up. Those would be my 3 suggestions.
When you were describing the having to like balance out the bean paste being too cold or too warm, it reminded me of some of the things I've watched where Claire's trying to balance out like pie dough and the not getting the butter too warm, and sometimes having to like put it in the fridge and then take it back out. So I mean, I feel like even professional chefs are struggling with that balance of, is it too humid, is it too cold, what's, you know, for the right use.
Yeah, definitely. And going back to your point, Justine, what would my suggestions be? Now I'm thinking maybe I would consult another recipe, maybe a more detailed recipe for some tips.
Yeah, because I feel like even the technique of just stretching and like pinching off the end and stuff, I feel like there must be a knack to that they weren't saying. Because, you know, whenever you see sort of Asian people make dumplings and stuff, like they make it look so easy, and then you have a go and you're all fingers and thumbs and it just looks like someone coughed something up rather than being something that, you know, beautiful and delicate and smooth and lovely and, you know, whatever it's supposed to be. So I feel like there must be, I'm sure people have written about how to do mochi and what the knack is that might be more helpful.
Yeah, definitely. Mine definitely ended up looking like inept dim sum dumplings instead of nice little mochi balls.
I think, you know, if it tasted good, that's all that matters, and the cross section looks adorable. So
yeah, I still love it. I applaud you so much for like thinking out of the box, and like I think this is great.
I think it's a perfect suggestion and very, very sexy.
And in my search, I noticed that Claire has a matcha flavored white chocolate dipped strawberries. So maybe I'll give those a go one of these days.
Oh, that sounds good. Yeah.
Guys, we did it.
Yay! We survived another holiday.
So sexy.
Sexy.
I'm surprised that none of us did a so-called aphrodisiac food or ingredient.
Yeah.
No, I did think about oysters for an appetizer, but then I was like, I love oysters, But there is always going to be a risk of food poisoning. And I'm like, I am too busy. I do not have time to get food poisoning right now. Plus, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing with them at home. I'd rather have them in a restaurant. So, yeah, I didn't.
I was looking up like aphrodisiac foods and what I could make. I just couldn't find anything that translated to the BA sites that were vegan. So
yeah.
I had thought about trying to do chocolate. Not that chocolate is necessarily an aphrodisiac, but like you said, Meg, like we all thought, oh, chocolate's like the first thing you think about with Valentine's Day. And so I was thinking about doing some sort of chocolate drink, but a lot of the ones that I was finding were like spiked hot chocolate, which I feel is a good winter, but I also feel like winter drink, but I also feel like it's a heavier drink for like what we were going for. Whereas I felt like a, cocktail seemed lighter with the citrus and everything.
I just like, as you said, LJ, that we've all kind of just put our personalities into the dish, and that's the sexiest part of all.
Absolutely.
Look how sexy we can be.
Being yourself is sexy.
Yay!
Well, thank you, listeners, for joining us this week. Please let us know what sexy Valentine's Day things you're making on social media. And next time on the podcast, we'll be back with more Bon Appetit recaps. We'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to Pod Appetit, a Bon Appetit fan cast.
We'd love to hear from you, so find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest at pod_appetit.
And on Facebook at Pod Appetit Podcast.
You can also email us at podappetitpodcast@gmail.com and find all of our episodes on our website, podappetitpodcast.com.
Until next time, the test kitchen is closed.
Hi, I'm Heather.
And I'm Rhonda.
And we're two wine-loving psych nerds who together host the bi-weekly podcast Wine Mind.
Have you ever poured back a glass or three of wine and found yourself wondering, why do I love wine so much?
What's the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath?
Do I really have OCD?
If so, then Wine Mind is the podcast for you. Every episode we choose a different psychology question to answer and pair it with a bottle of wine. Because wine is awesome.
Find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. And check out our website at winemindpodcast.com.
You can also find us on the social medias as @WineMindPodcast. Join us and uncork your brain. Cheers!